How you set it up?
So like, have like,
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Rutherford Board of Education regular meeting of March 12th, 2018. I would ask everyone to stand and please pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and thank you for coming this evening. I would, first order of business, ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Here.
Dr. Olati,
here,
Mr. Healy,
here,
Mrs. Jones,
Present.
Mrs. Librera,
Here.
Mr. Mazzone, Dr. Racine,
here,
Mr. Rowland,
here.
Mr. McLean.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with these provisions with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted in the bulletin board on the bulletin board outside of the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in this meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Regular meetings of the Rutherford Board of Education will be broadcast without editing during a 2-hour segment as limited by Comcast time constraints on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. on Comcast Public Access Channel and on FiOS Channel 38. A video of the meeting can also be viewed on our website at www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. Any member of the public who wishes to view a DVD of the meeting can make that request in writing to the board secretary. Members of the board, in your packets were the minutes from the regular meeting of February 12th, 2018. Does anyone have any comments or corrections to be made to those minutes? Yes. No, we're going to, if there are no objections, we'll simply ask the secretary to put the minutes into the record. We then will move to our next order of business, which will be a report of our student representative, Mr. Sullivan.
Hello. The past 2 weeks have been really exciting and eventful for RHS. This past weekend, RHS put on their last production of the year, which was Cinderella. Last week, RHS also brought home their first Bergen County Consumer Bowl win. So I think that was the first win in like 17 years or something. And that's a business program we have here under Mrs. Leonard and Miss Bott. Last week was also Read Across Rutherford, which was also Dr. Seuss Week, where the public speaking students and members of the Future Teachers Club read to children all throughout the kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third grade. Looking forward, we have our walkout ceremony in memorial for the 17 victims that were lost in the Parkland shooting. And this is going to be 17 minutes for the 17 students. And with laws permitting, we can't do what we expected to do, but I think we're going to do a walk around the building with like police security surrounding us. So, and then we'll have a nice moment of silence for the victims lost. Also, for sports, spring sports, it's right now it's just scrimmages for us as we get into our seasons, and we're excited to see how we do this year.
Thank you. Any questions from
I just
comments?
like to add, I saw the play on yesterday afternoon. It was absolutely wonderful.
The Sherlock girls, it was just wonderful. The music was fantastic. I couldn't get over it. It was wonderful.
We always put on a great production.
They do. They always do.
Very good. I see quite a few young faces here. It seems we have a couple of special presentations. I would like to ask our superintendent, Mr. Hurley, to please introduce them.
We have with us tonight students and teachers from Lincoln School. I see Dr. Valechko is here somewhere, so her come in. She's over there. And are you going to speak, or is Ms. Adakachunas going to speak?
You're going to let me speak?
Well, you know, I saw you walked in. I mean, are you prepared? You want to speak? Okay, so here's Dr. Valechko to introduce some of her staff and students. And this year, one of the goals, as I'm sure she'll explain, and one of the goals that we took on even district-wide was to look at wellness and mindfulness. So there you go.
Okay. So this year, as Mr. Hurley said, we took on a mindfulness goal this year, and we wanted the students to be a little bit more focused and being a little bit more in control, and we wanted them to stop, think, and then make some choices. So the teachers were trained. They went for a 2-hour training, and then we've had trainings after school once a month, and then we did a follow-up session, and the children learned how to do yoga in their chairs, in their classrooms, some breathing techniques. So Mrs. Akachunas and Ms. Cruz have been leading the charge, and they have their second graders here to show off, right, all your techniques that you've learned. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Akachunas and Ms. Cruz.
Good evening, everyone, and we're very excited to be here tonight. We have really enjoyed the mindful activities that we've been doing at Lincoln School, and we're pleasantly surprised at the way the students have been implementing this into their lives. They would come in with stories and say that they had trouble falling asleep, but they did a mantra, or they did a lotus breath, or one of the yoga activities, and then they fell asleep. Or they were nervous about a test, or they felt upset about something. So it has just been more than we had realized, and so we're going to share with you tonight. I'm going to let the children run the whole program. They are going to share with you how they use this, what they do, and teach you some yoga in case you don't know too much about it. Okay?
I'll sit. Okay. Yeah, I'm shy.
What, is this where you started? Yeah. When I'm feeling sad. Okay. You're fine.
When I'm feeling sad, I go in a corner and do 3 lotus breaths. So let's do it.
Oh, gee, are you going to go home?
Stand up. Put both of your hands to your heart. Raise it to your mouth. Take a deep breath. Exhale and open your flower. Bring your flower up and put it down. And do it again. Put it to your chest. Raise, blow, and exhale. Now do it by yourself without me telling you how to do it.
Show us. You do it too. Go ahead.
And after I'm done with that, I do 3 mantras. So how you do the mantra is you put your thumb and your pointer fingers together. And while you're doing it, you keep putting your thumb and your other fingers together. And you could say anything that makes you feel what you want to say. So I say, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. So that's how I do it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Johnny. Yoga helps me when I'm stressed out. One day when I was stressed out, I did the bunny breath. One day when I kept getting hurt, I did the mantra. I am happy when Miss Cruz comes in. So, how you do the bunny breath, you sit down, put your hands on your knees, you twitch your nose, 3 quick breaths in, and then 1 long breath out through your nose. Again and again.
Hi, my name is Vera. Yoga has helped me in many ways. For example, it has helped me relax, focus, and has made me very happy. Now I'm going to tell you some yoga. My favorite is the breath of joy. First, you're going to take a deep breath in. Bring your hands in front of your heart. Bring your hands in front to your sides. Then to your front, then up above you, and then bring it down. Slowly bring your hands up. Do it 2 more times. Hi, my name's Liam. The breath of joy feels like you're stretching. The am what I am, when you put your pointer finger to your thumb, it feels like you're ready to work. They both help me to be quiet and relax. I'm going to show you the am what I am. So you put your pointer finger on your thumb, and I say sa, ta, na, ma. Sa, ta, na, ma. Sa, ta, na, ma. Then you stop. Hi, my name is Renavi. When I was doing gymnastics at aftercare and I got nervous and I fell down, then I said the mantra and it helped me to concentrate. Hi, my name is Arnav. Lotus breath helped me focus. Breath of joy helped me do my homework. I am what I am helped me calm down. Mindful body check-in helped me do math and word search at home. Every yoga help you focus and calm down. Hi, my name is Savian. Yoga helps me be calmer. I use the breath of joy and the lotus breath. It helps me come down and help me when I'm sad, mad, or I'm frustrated. Thank you. My name is Chloe. I like all the yoga poses, but I will show you what I use them for. I use the lotus flower for calming down. I use the breath of joy for listening better. My name is Nico, and yoga has helped me with stress, and it makes me relax. I do the lotus flower, and I am when I am. My name is Krishana, and my favorite yoga pose is the breath of joy, and I am what I am. I love yoga because it helps me when I'm stressed. Michael. I didn't notice breath when I'm upset or sad. Hi, my name is Kareem, and yoga helps me when I'm nervous and when I can't sleep. The bunny breath is when I'm nervous, and the lotus flower is when I can't sleep. Hi, my name is Luca. The lotus breath helps me when I am stressed or angry. It should help you be more calm. Thank you. This is called the mantra. I made up one. It is called I am okay. It helps me when I am hurt or when I am having a test. It helps me tell me that I am okay. So everybody put your pinky and your thumb together. Say, I am okay. I am okay. I am okay.
Hi, I'm Miss Cruz. I go into Mrs. Akashuni's class every other week, and I help with the yoga with the students. And I noticed that they became better friends, and they're closer, and there's less stress in the class. So I'm really lucky to work in Lincoln School because they're using yoga, and that's like a tool for the teachers and as well as for the students. They don't only use this in class, they use this outside of class, and it's something that they can use forever. And I was thinking the other day about why this is such a good tool, because right now in the schools there's so much tension, so much stress, and the kids are not given tools to use when they're stressed, when they can't put their thoughts together. And I feel that yoga has helped these kids put their thoughts together, and they recognize that it's helping them. So I'm really proud of them, and I'm really happy to be working in a school that is implementing this, a skill that these kids can use, a life skill they can use forever for anything. So thank you.
I just wanted to add that we really have seen a difference in the way they're approaching tests, for example. A couple of weeks ago, we gave the COGAT IQ test, and they were nervous, they were a little bit stressed. Somebody want to share what happened after we did the mantra and some yoga exercises? Angeli, what happened? How did you feel?
I felt really nervous because I thought I was going to get everything wrong and it would go on my report card.
And then after you did the yoga, did you feel better?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. They truly did calm down. They focus better. We use this throughout the day when the children are excited or wound up, maybe after lunch, after recess, before we want to settle down and get to work, and it really does make a difference. So I too am very grateful to be in the Rutherford school system for so many years, and it's such a blessing to so many people. And we have such a great community and so many wonderful programs. And I'm so glad to be a part of this new one. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, a little later is supposed to be a time for a report of the president, but I'm not going to do that because I wanted to talk with you, our presenters. And I'm thinking, I wasn't prepared to say this, but it came to me as you were talking. So about 20 years ago, if you can imagine that long ago, my daughter was in second grade in Lincoln. And my daughter loved Lincoln School. At that time, it went through fifth grade. And I just happened this weekend to have found a picture of her in fifth grade with a teacher by the name of Mrs. Wilkes. And I've told stories to our staff in the past, or I've told them that my daughter in fifth grade determined she wanted to be an elementary educator. And she carried that with her through college, and just this past summer finished her master's, which is a big, big degree. And she studied, her thesis was on mindfulness and incorporating mindfulness into the teaching. And she today, in fact, I missed our last meeting because I was on the other side of the world in Vietnam, where my daughter is teaching first grade in an international school, and she was just asked to be the mindfulness coordinator for that school. So what you're doing here, students like you are doing around the world. And I think that 20 years from now, when you're the ones out there teaching, and you're out there with the children from the other parts of the world, this sort of thing is going to help us do a lot better job of getting along, managing tension, and organizing ourselves around stress. So congratulations and thank you so much.
I just want to also mention Dr. Valeshko and the teachers at Lincoln. This has been a lot of research that they've done. This is all research-based. They've spent a better part of 2 years studying how to incorporate not just yoga, but other mindfulness activities. You have a book club in your school. You've done activities among the faculty and staff. We've brought trainers in for the faculty and staff. So as with most things that we do here, we put a lot of time and effort into the preparation, and it paid off. You can see how it's working with the students and with the staff as well, because the teachers and staff are practicing a lot of this as well. So congratulations on setting a goal and reaching it and continuing to move forward with it. So thank you.
So if there are any comments or questions from the board, I should ask any member of the board. Mrs. Jones.
I'd just like to say, Mr. Hurley knows that I've been after us to see if we could get yoga in, so you have really made me happy. And they're wonderful. You did a great job, kids. I take yoga, and I wish I had done it years ago, and it really helps me too.
And so if there's no objection from a member of the board, I'd like to suggest we take just a quick 5-minute recess. We can say hello to our presenters and then allow them to leave if they would like to before we continue the rest of our meeting. Okay? 5-minute recess. Thank you. Thank you. We'll come back into session. And I see that we have some children remaining, and I don't want to make it too long on any of the public that might want to maybe have something to say and then move on. So I'm going to change without, if no one objects, I'll change the order of the meeting, and instead of going into our second presentation and the report of the superintendent, I'd like to open the meeting to the public for comment. Normally, this part of the meeting is for anything on the agenda, but in this case, I'm guessing that maybe there may be some folks that want to make a comment, so I'll make it open to any topic. If someone's making a comment, we ask you to please state your name and address, and try to limit the comments to around 4 minutes, if possible, please. So, with no objection, we'll open the floor for public comment. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michael Gemelli. I live at 15 Myrtle Street. President McLean, I was here about a month ago to speak about the Rutherford High School pool and was well received by the board and Superintendent Hurley. Basically, I'm here just simply urge you all to keep the Rutherford High School pool for our community. After speaking to you all last month, I had the pleasure of meeting many other Rutherford residents we all share the common goal of saving the Rutherford High School pool. We recently started collecting signatures in support of changing the referendum to take the pool part off, of changing it to a cafeteria. And in just really a few hours' time, we've collected over 100 signatures. Just something we started over the weekend. We've expanded quickly. It seems everyone we talk to, a large percentage of the people either didn't know about it and are supportive of keeping the pool. We recently went to a Rutherford Town Council meeting I know it's a different pool of money and all that, but want to make sure that the council and the mayor were aware that this is on the board. We got good feedback from the council, and hopefully they have reached out to you or are reaching out to you soon to see if there's some common solution they can work with you all to save the pool. Because, you know, if it's one of funding, there is the community aspect of the pool, and there's ways to solve that. The people behind me today, it's just a small number of people that we've spoken to, but they've done a lot of work to find out some good information about the pool, and they're going to tell you that tonight. Also, besides the adults who have done a lot of work, some of the children who are on the swim team really felt they stepped up and they said they just wanted to say a couple words about saving the pool too. So I'm confident that you all can come up with a solution on how to get this done and keep this really valuable asset for generations to come. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Kevin Duggan. I live at 469 Stuyvesant Avenue. And I'm here today as well to share my concerns about keeping the pool. So I've read a lot of the plans. Thank you, Mr. Hardy, for all the information you shared with me. There's a lot of information out there. I'd encourage anybody that hasn't read it yet to go back and read it, because you'll learn everything you need to know. First, I'd like to thank the board, because this is volunteerism and you spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and sometimes it goes, unsaid. So thank you for what you do. Of the information that I got from reading all the plans, the only thing that I have a real concern about is the elimination of the pool. So I went back and I listened to last month's meeting, and I agree 100% with everything that the 5 people who spoke last month. Everything they said I agree with. I'm not going to repeat any of those issues, because I think those are all good reasons why we should keep the pool. What I'd like to do would be add a couple of additional reasons that I hope that you will listen to and take into consideration. So first and foremost is the fact that the pool already exists. It's here. It's not so lightly used. It's pretty heavily used by the YMCA as well as by the community. And I've heard from the YMCA leadership that they very much would like to continue to use the pool. So I know they have a new pool, but they want to run 2 pools. They have so much that they want to offer, they can't do it in one pool. So the fact that they need both pools and that we have a pool, it seems more sensible to me that we should keep that and work out some arrangement with the YMCA where they can do that. And I believe the proposal to eliminate the pool did not come from the planning committee. It did not come from the survey. It did not come from the board. It was the architects, I think, who suggested that. And I would hope that there has to be another way. There's got to be an alternate plan that we can find a way to do the things we need to do, but keep the pool. And another big reason is the history behind the pool. And there's an old adage that we're doomed to repeat history if we don't know history and learn from it. So Mr. Kelly informed me that a lot of the records from the 80s, they're destroyed. We don't keep records that old. But I did learn from the borough records some of the history behind the pool and how it came to be funded. And I've learned how the residents of Rutherford fought long and hard to get this pool built. And it was actually funded in the 70s as a result of a federal grant. So there was almost $2 million in today's money of a grant that was obtained by the town. But there was a lot of controversy and a lot of lawsuits. The Rutherford Rec Department, but the preceding group to the Rec Department was the Rec Commission. And they and the council didn't agree on where the pool should be located. So they brought lawsuits against each other, with the end result that the funding was going to be lost. And that's when the Board of Ed at the time stepped in and said, you know what, we'll solve the problem. We'll put the pool here at the high school. And they did. And the pool got built. And the town didn't lose the funding. And as a result, we've had the pool ever since. So that's a fantastic facility that we've had. It was in February of '78 when the council decided and agreed and approved to turn over those funds to the Board of Ed, they stipulated at the time, and I like to quote, that the town shared this facility weekends, summers, and evenings. So, from the very start, this was intended to be a community pool, and it was run as a community pool. And I would hope we can continue to run it as a community pool. And indeed, the language in the contract between the board and the YMCA uses that same language. It's referred to as a community pool. One last point that I'd like you to consider is, as I read through the proposals, it's clear that there's about $15 million in other recreational facilities. So there's 2 new gyms, there's the work on the field. So obviously you understand and you respect and you see the need for recreational facilities. I would just ask and hope that you consider the pool equally important in that plan. Because if we're going to put that much money into it for a facility that we have, I think we ought to find a way to keep it. Because we'll never build this again. If we lose this, it's going to be gone forever. I don't believe the pool is expendable. I think for all the reasons that the people who spoke last month, those are, anybody goes back and listens to those reasons, they're real, they're valid, especially with all the things that are happening all over the country today. In other schools, we need facilities like this. We need a place where other kids who don't play sports, who don't play other sports, they might go to the pool. So I would urge you, I would ask you to please find a way that we can find the funding. And it needs funding. It's not a zero cost. I understand that. But it is a tremendous facility, and I hope we can keep it. Thank you.
Just to give me an idea on timing, by show of hands, how many people plan or would like to say something? Okay, so really going to have to try to stick to 4 minutes limit, okay? Because we have a lot of board business that needs to be conducted after this. So I'll just watch on my clock and ask, I'll give you a little signal if we're getting near the 4 minute mark, okay? Thank you.
Jessica Morales. I am a Rutherford parent of 3 children that have gone through the Rutherford school system. I'm also a registered nurse, and I just wanted to add a comment. I agree with the gentleman that were here before that spoke about the Rutherford pool. I just wanted to emphasize that the pool is not only good for children as far as their health, it's also a life-saving skill, lifelong skill for children, a child development, safety. And the safety, there's a lot of children that go to after-school programs that have swim, sessions and whatnot, so they could stay in a program instead of being out on the streets and not having anything to do after school. This is something that it really affects our kids and their future. And as some of you as educators can understand that, I'm sure. So I want you to really give good thought about what you're doing right now and taking away this pool from the kids and from the community, because we could really do something with the community and, start pitching in. Thank you.
Mr. Hurley, Mr. Kelly, board member, first and foremost, I do want to thank all of you for your dedication. Name.
Yes, name and address, please.
Hisham Mahmoud, Mahmoud, 259 Orient Way. Again, I do want to thank all of you for your dedication and commitment to the improvement of the life of our kids. I've had the chance to speak to a few of the board members and Dr. Valeshko as well. I did speak in last week's meeting. As a matter of fact, I did write some notes here. I'm just going to put it aside and speak from my head. My understanding from communicating with Mr. Hurley and Mr. Kelly that there is no other plan. There is no plan B currently to help us accomplish our goal. Now, I took it upon myself. I did survey the school with a friend of mine who happened to be an architect, another friend who happened to be a general contractor. They came up with quite a few ideas, which I think is very viable and can be used. I did send these ideas in details to Mr. Hurley and the board. That being said, if I recall correctly from my notes, we expect the population increase by 120 students by the year 2023. That's in 5 years from now. Now, if we get rid of the pool, and if we follow this plan, what are we going to do in 10, 15 years from now when we have 200 students, 300 students, maybe 400 students? It's gotta be another viable option. And the only viable option I can see, which may cost us a little bit extra upfront, is to expand vertically. We can't go horizontally. We can't take the field. We can't go anywhere else. We can expand vertically. That being said, 40 years ago, a member of the Board of Education stood in front of mayor and council, arguing them, begging them to spend about $186,000 to make that pool state-of-the-art pool. Unfortunately, he was not granted that money. I ask you, please, please, don't let history repeat itself. Don't let us lose the pool. There are other alternatives that can be done. One more question, and you can answer it after the open meeting. I understand one of the items on the agenda today is to submit the plans for the high school and the beer pond to the state. I would like to understand, what does that mean? Does that mean it's final plan? Does that mean we have to go with that plan? And in addition, because I'm not reading from my notes, and I'll try to stay under the 4 minutes, few of us did speak to Mr. Egan, Mrs. Egan from the YMCA. Not only that, she said they are willing to continue the contract with the Board of Education, she has indicated to us that they're willing to make the long-term commitment by signing a 5 years, 10 years contract. Not only that, if the Board of Education grant them long-term commitment, they are willing to spend or share the money to renew the pool. Whatever that $1 million we have to spend on renewing the pool, the YMCA is willing to share that. Thank you for listening.
No, you have a, if you have a...
Yeah, I just like to, a couple of points, okay? It's just a couple of points of clarification. There is, we didn't say there was not a plan B, okay? What we said was, when the architect and the engineers looked at the building and looked at the report of the need for additional classrooms at the high school, this is what they presented back to us. Having gone through, the architect's been with us 20 years, having been going through what other alternatives, his presentation was, this is the most viable alternative. That said, after the last board meeting, I asked the architect, who we have had conversation with about this being the most viable alternative, to come up with not a full-blown proposal that takes a lot of time and a lot of money, but to give me more specifics as to what options there might be and how that would work into space and how that would work into cost. And I expect to get that report from him sometime this week or early next week. And at the March 26th Board of Education meeting, which is an add-on meeting, it's a special meeting, which was predicated by a change in the budget calendar from the state, we're going to have 2 topics. One would be the approval of the preliminary budget that Mr. Kelly is going to talk a little bit about in a bit. And the other topic would be a presentation from PSA, our architectural firm, and EPIC, our project management firm, about the plans that are currently being considered and any potential changes to those plans. So I want to clarify that. Second thing I want to clarify is the first question that we asked back in June, perhaps, and I repeated that question following the last board meeting. This building is not constructed in a way to support an additional level. So building up is not an option in this building.
May I comment for a second?
Well, you could, but let me just finish. But this is coming from the architect and the engineer and the project management who did the last construction for us as well, okay? That doesn't mean there aren't some other options, but that's not an option. And the final thing is about what's being approved tonight. We have to, the board has to send down, we did the other plans, down for educational adequacy. And that's looking at primarily classroom space versus demographic student projection of population, okay? Those plans can get altered. Those plans can get ignored, not go through with. The board ultimately will make the decision sometime, again, following the calendar that the state provides us. It'd probably be in early June, okay? When the report from the state comes back on the current plans, the board then has an option through the architect and the engineer to submit back to the state any questions, disagreements, revisions that can be made to the plan. But what we need to do, and we're kind of right at the cusp now of a deadline, is we have to start the 90-day review process to get in the state's docket, more or less, okay? So nothing is final based on submitting plans for educational adequacy, which is really more of a demographic and also a financial review. If it's going to cost X number of dollars based on how many educational programs you're putting in, that's how much of a debt reduction you get back. So for example, the field. I'll give you two examples. If we were to put referendum money into the pool, and the pool was more of a YMCA, well, it's a YMCA program, we wouldn't get back any debt reduction on that. The athletic field in the back, we have to make a case for, this is used for our physical education program and our marching band and our co-curricular in order to qualify for debt reduction. That's what they're looking at now. It's not a finalization of plans, okay? So I just wanted to clarify that we are looking into a little more detailed about why the architect chose this as the most viable option. We are looking at, there's certain things we know already we can't do, and the plans being submitted are not to be thought of as being anything other than the next step in a review process. Okay?
So if the architect comes back and say there is another option that will increase the footprint of the school, would that be acceptable to the board and
Well,
submit it to the state?
I can't speculate on what would be acceptable to the board, and then depending on, and because we don't even know what he may or may not tell us, right? I also can't handicap whether the board decides to go option A, option B, option whatever. Ultimately, this is, again, understand what a referendum is. The board doesn't make a decision. The board puts forward a plan to the public to vote on. So, you know, there's a lot, I could not possibly offer an opinion about whether a plan that doesn't exist yet would be A, acceptable to the board, or then B, acceptable to the community at large. Okay? But I want you to understand that we are looking, and we're going to hear what they have to say. And it'll be discussed at the March, hopefully, unless I get a delay from the architect, it'll be discussed at the March 26th board meeting.
Will we have a chance to talk to the architect as well? Or?
He'll be here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
My name is Declan Mellett, and I've lived in Rutherford all my life. I'm in 7th grade, and I live at 114 Mortimer Avenue. And I'm here to talk about the filling in of the high school pool to create a bigger cafeteria. So I learned how to swim when I was 5, but I didn't join swim team until I was 11, so I'm 13 now. Outside of the actual competitive aspect of swimming, I've had many new experiences with the sport that I would not have been able to get anywhere else. And I've been to many different places and met lots of new friends. To close the pool would be sending a negative message to all of us who work so hard and every day. When I say I love swimming, I'm speaking for about 75 more swimmers on the team, and none of us would like to see the pool closed. So another aspect of closing the pool would mean that you'd be denying like all the Rutherford High School team, like they could earn scholarships. But if you close it, then that could mean that the high school team could also be closed. And then that would mean that they might not be able to get scholarships. So that could be denying them a lot of money that would be saved, and it would stop them from, like, it could like stop their eligibility to go to better colleges. So I hope you consider what I've said, and thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Maureen Mellett. I live at 114 Mortimer Avenue, and I'm a 5th grader at Pierpont School. So, I started doing swim lessons when I was 3 years old here at the high school pool, and ever since then, I've loved swimming. I've swam a lot in my neighbor's pool. I've done family swim and lap swim, and then when I was 9, I started doing swim team. Swim team has definitely benefited me in many ways. It's helped me learn to set a lot of goals. ultimately, I'd love to go to Junior Olympics next year. I'd love to swim in high school. I'd love to swim in college. And it's really because of swimming that I set all these goals. One thing that I thought if you close the pool would be unfair is that you offer facilities for basketball, football, softball, baseball, volleyball, tennis, track, and many other sports. But if you close, the swimming is a year-round sport, or maybe not in high school, but we all swim year-round. And and all these other sports, they're not as much year-round, so that might not be as fair to us. So, yeah, Caroline.
I'm Caroline Gemelli. I live 15 Myrtle Street. I'm in 7th grade and I'm 12 this year. I've been doing swim lessons since I was 2 or 3 years old. I've joined swim team when I was 10 years old, and
One last point is that I live right down the block, so the pool is very local and it's really easy to walk to for me, and I know that's the same for many other families, so I think that that's very convenient. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Nabil, and I'm a 6th grader. I'm a swimmer. Please don't take away the pool.
Hello, Mr. Hurley and the board members. My name is Zach, and I live at 259 Orient Way, and I go to Pierpont School, and I'm a 6th grader. I'm also on the swim team. A lot of towns wish they had a pool, and by taking it away and replacing it with a cafeteria, I think that's not right. Also, to be honest, when I'm in high school, I would rather go out and eat instead of staying in the cafeteria. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rado, last name Laurent, 86 Carmita. Just a quick question. I was a recipient of full swimming scholarship, so I can definitely agree with these kids. It's a great opportunity for them to, deserve a really big help with their college bills, and it would be shame that we take it away from them. We're very much involved with swimming, all our kids, and it's a great sport that improves their discipline and mental abilities and helps them to obviously be in better shape. So the question I have for a board, if I may, we noticed that none of the school programs utilize the pool anymore. And I'm wondering, how did that happen? How did we get to the place that we have amazing asset right here for all of us, and the board is not seeing this to be something that we should utilize every day for every kid to learn how to school in our, public schools of excellence? Thank you.
That's a good question. It's one that among the board questions have been asked. So perhaps Mr. Rowland.
Well, the decision to take the pool was in a grades 4 and 5, if I'm not mistaken, curriculum for years. It wasn't the high school curriculum years ago. The Board of Education, I was here in 1978. I mean, I know I don't look that old, but I was here. And when the pool was first constructed, it was the Board of Education that ran the pool. Hired pool managers, hired staff, hired all the lifeguards, and that became, and again, I was not in an administrative position at that time, so a lot of this I'm just doing anecdotally for what I remember. The board could not sustain the cost of pool managers, assistant managers, 7 days a week, and so on. So the YMCA became a partner where the Y operated programs, hired the managers, hired the lifeguards, and the board, which is still the plan we have now, the board took care of maintenance and supplies and things like that. When that happened, The YMCA then wanted some morning swim time and some afternoon and evening swim time. It was never a very popular program in the high school physical education program among the students. So we moved out of that, and this is back like in the 90s, and moved towards the elementary school. As a couple of things developed over time. Now, remember, there was some other issues that involved for the board, and again, I'm speaking about a board from 15, 20 years ago and a whole different group of administrators. We had to hire all phys ed teachers had to be WSI and lifeguard certified. That limited our pool of instructors. We had to hire a lot of aides. We had to bus kids across town and so on. We had to arrange schedules where the locker room facilities with fourth graders coming in while there were high school juniors and seniors in the locker room. And we had some issues there as well. But the main driving force why it was removed from the elementary became the changes in state requirements in curriculum, where for years, and I say this because I corrected it, and this board corrected it, but for years we were not providing world language instruction to kids in the elementary level. We didn't have a science program really to speak. It was all done by the teacher. There was no science specialist. And we were putting kids on a bus, taking them across town, which was for about 15 minutes of changing time, 15 minutes of changing time, 10-minute transportation time for about 15 minutes in the pool, and we weren't providing the academic requirements that were part of code. So that's why that happened. Now, we could agree or disagree about whether that's a good decision or a bad decision, but that's the history about why. And it was both, the main driver was academic. Second was a security issue of the kids on the bus and the kids coming into the locker room. And the third was the financial aspect of it.
Why wasn't it moved from high school program? I understand the busing and the little kids and timing issues, but high school is right here.
Yeah, if you would stand and name and address and then, yeah.
My name is Susanna Lorang. I'm wife of Brado Lorang. We live at 86 Carmita. I understand the reasons, it can be cumbersome to bus the kids back and forth. Right. My older kid, actually, my older son, he was still part of the program when he was in 4th or 5th grade.
Right.
He did swim here. But I was very surprised to learn that we do not use it for high school kids. High school kids are right here.
That was the first to go a long time ago, and that was really driven, well, as I explained, the board had to hire a full-time pool manager at salary, a full-time assistant pool manager. The cost made them get into a partnership with the Y. The Y demanded, that's a strong word, the Y needed, if they were going to run a pool program, that morning 6 a.m. to 12 noon or 1 o'clock swim. The high school schedule, phys ed happens every day.
Right.
So it was not, we just couldn't do it, couldn't fit it in. That's when we kept the afternoon slot where the elementary students were able to rotate in because their phys ed is locked in a little differently. That's the reason. And again, these are decisions that were made in 2007, 2008, not by me, not by this board, but I'm telling you, I was the high school principal, and that was the reason behind it.
It feels unfortunate, though. It feels like I'm not sure if that would be the best decision. I understand that it was done before, but
well, if you stay around and you see the budget presentation, you'll see we have a 2% budget cap every year. And it came down to whether we could afford to hire English teachers and history teachers. And, the pool took up a lot of money. And some of these decisions in terms of partnering with the community group and were made. And again, I can't give you chapter and verse. I'm not defending or attacking. It wasn't made by me or this board.
right.
But I'm telling you why it was.
I'm just
Yeah,
trying
that's
to learn
that's the history behind it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further comments from public, community? No. So I would like to say that it's valuable to us to hear opinions. We're neighbors, we're volunteers, but we're elected by the community to to serve on the board. Our first responsibility is to the safety and education requirements of our the town's students. But certainly understanding financial impacts and community interest and that sort of thing is a keen interest to us. I in particular would like to thank, or we would in particular like to thank the younger folks that stood up and spoke. Throughout your lives, you'll be given opportunities to voice your opinion. It's fine to have an opinion that you voice that doesn't necessarily agree with who's listening to you, or vice versa, but it's important that you're able to do it in a articulate, intelligent way, and you all did that, and so we appreciate it, and it does help us as we're making decisions. So thank you.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah, please.
I want to make sure everybody leaves understanding that this is not first of all, there's no decision made yet, right? Okay, but this is not about the pool. It's about the need for additional classroom space, right? So what we're asking, and it's not about a cafeteria. The cafeteria would be good because we can't keep our kids in the building even if we want to during lunch, right? But it's about classroom space that we're desperately needing. You'll be seeing posted on the web shortly the demographic report to show how the population is growing. I think one of the speakers alluded to that. We're asking the architect to revisit how can we get that classroom space at the high school. It's not about the pool or the value of swimming. It's about finding space to add classroom. So, if there's a plan that can be presented to the board that can do that for consideration, back to the gentleman before, the board's going to listen and think about it and discuss it. Okay? So, this isn't a point counterpoint digging in our heels. This is trying to find a way to create the space we need for our current school population, and the population is going to be bigger in a few years. Okay?
Thank you all. So we will move on now at 8:35, close the floor to public comment, and we move back in the agenda to our second special presentation, which is our budget presentation update by Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. Nice job, boys and girls.
Okay, we'll do it like that. We'll keep this pretty short. I've left you each a copy of this presentation. It's just a few points I want to go through. As we discussed in prior meetings and in committee meetings, this has been a really strange budget season. Not from anything we've done, but because of what the state has done. Because we have a new governor in place, they have extended his commitment for his budget address, which was normally due by February 28th. He now has until March 13th, which is tomorrow. So he got a 2-week extension, which pushed back everything else with the budget. So that's why we're having this conversation significantly later than we have had it in previous years. But even having said that much, the budget still is not complete. We're not going to get state aid figures until Thursday of this week, so at that point we can finish tying everything up. So I'll just run through a few of the points that I wanted you to be aware of. As I mentioned before, this is very much a maintenance budget. It still is very much a maintenance budget. We don't have a lot of new programs. It's really an opportunity to stop and catch our breath. We've introduced a lot of new programs over the past few years. Bulldog Academy, full-day kindergarten, preschool, the kindergarten ABA program. There's a multiple disabilities program that was introduced within the last 3 or 4 years. And all those programs are still in the budget. but we are just stopping to catch our breath and just bring those programs forward. So that's what I mean by maintenance budget. In addition, there's some facilities improvements and maintenance and repairs. We do have very old buildings here. I think we do a very good job of keeping up with them and keeping up on the repairs that are needed. So we have to keep funding that, of course. Four main sources of funds, and I'm going to try and get through this faster than I usually do. Local tax levy is the largest. There we go. About $40 million in this year, 17-18, which is over 90% of our total revenues. To that, state legislation requires that we cannot increase that tax levy by more than 2% on an annual basis, plus some allowable adjustments. I can't quantify the allowable adjustments at this point, but usually we have two. One is an enrollment adjustment. I don't expect we'll have that available to us this year because in prior years we've had an enrollment increase with kindergarten program, with the pre-K programs. This year we don't have anything, so I'm not expecting that adjustment. The other adjustment we'll usually take advantage of is for the health benefits. I'll get into that in a little bit. It brings us up to a new base of $41 million without the allowable adjustments. Second most significant source of funds for us is state aid. I've took a little time today to go back and get some history on this. This goes back to if you can read it, to the 2001-2002 school year. If you can see, looking at those numbers down at the bottom of the middle column and compare them to the ones up at the top, the state really hasn't made any movement here. Okay, they've gone down a bit, they've gone up a bit at some point. They were giving us over $3 million a year in 2008, 2009. But we've been at about 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 million for the last 6 or 8 years, and that's where we were 18 years ago too. So, and we've discussed before also the state's requirement to not have unfunded mandates. If they need us to do something, they have to pay for it. Well, they're not. We get new mandates every day. Well, that's a slight exaggeration, but we get lots of new mandates every year. And they're barely treading water in terms of what they're giving this district. So the federal aid, I'm not going to get into that. We have IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and we have this one changes every year, the Every Student Succeeds Act. Mr. Hurley, is that correct?
Yeah.
So,
I think so.
Something like that, yes.
It'll probably change tomorrow.
Yeah, probably. So, those things we're factoring into the budget as well. Those are, as I said, federal programs. But they're smaller than what we get from the state. In addition, we have miscellaneous sources of income. Excess surplus is money that you'll see in the 18-19 budget. Those are unspent funds from our 16-17 school year that have to be brought into a subsequent budget. That's about $400,000. Our tuition revenue and other savings have increased substantially over the last couple of years with the courtesy busing, with the pre-K program, and a couple other things. But as we get more experience with that stuff, we're actually able to budget it better. So those numbers are improving, which is nice. We also have some money in capital reserve, which we can use for various projects. We'll talk about that in a second. I do want to point out, I think we had the same conversation last year, employee benefit contributions. If you remember, employees were phasing into a maximum employee benefit contribution amount, which maxed out 2 years ago. So what that did is that every year for those 4 years, that gave us an additional $700,000 in the budget that we could use. It was used to offset our health insurance premiums, but it did give us a little flexibility in the budget. But that doesn't exist anymore. Everybody is maxed out at their maximum employee benefit contributions. Use of funds, these are some of the challenges we're really facing here. I mentioned the health benefits before. We are looking at, per our consultant, we are looking at an increase for next year of somewhere between 13 and 18%, which is a bigger increase than we've seen in a while. We are in the state health benefits plan, which tends to be less expensive than other private plans, so we're already taking advantage of what we can in that regard, but we're tied into it now based on our own experience rating here. So we're kind of stuck where we are on this one. So that's a significant cost driver for 2018-19. Out of districts placements are fairly flat. I'm not expecting a major issue though there, but tuition costs are going up. You know, as I said, we have a 2% cap on, that's a 2% cap on 90% of our budget. The rest of the budget stays flat. So it's actually like a 1.8% cap that we have. Out of district schools that we place our students in are not always subject to that same cap. So the tuition rates go up higher, quite often go up higher. In fact, we looked at one that was going up about 35% this year for 18-19. So those are just more factors, of course. In addition, we've seen an uptick in extraordinary services that are needed for our students. Those are maybe an instructional aid for, I'm talking about classified students, special ed students. It could be occupational therapy, physical therapy. It could be a nurse. It could be speech. Any of that type of service, we're seeing a significant uptick in that this year, and we need to factor that in for next year. And facilities maintenance, we'll talk about that, but I think the budget as it looks right now, we do cover everything we need to cover, and we do have some projects in here too, which I can talk about in a second. Out of district placements, these are for students classified as special needs through the IEP process. Their needs cannot always be met in district, so in which case we often have to send them out. Roughly, and I'll have a better number at the next presentation, 70, 75 students from our district we send out of district, and we pay the tuition. Our first stop is the South Bergen Jointure, because their tuition rates are generally better if they can provide the services. They do have good programs. But if we can't, then we go to other public school districts, and we may end up with the private schools for students with disabilities, and those are the more costly programs. But we have an obligation to meet the needs of these students. What else we got here? Oh, here's the out-of-district placements through this year. If you can see that the red line is the number of students that have placed out of district. Like I said, on the line furthest to the right is the current year, 17-18. It's about 75 students. See, it's peaked a little higher, but we brought a number of students back with some of the programs that we started in district over the last couple of years, like particularly the pre-K program. So you see the number of students, but in general, the number of students and the costs rise fairly consistently year after year. If you can't read that, the blue bars are the costs, the annual tuition costs. The red line is the number of students. Other initiatives, like I mentioned, we have a number of capital projects we're looking to get into the budget. The highest priorities are to begin work on the Yankee gutters at Union School. They've been a problem for a long time, and it's the gutter system surrounding the entire building. So we're going to take a piece of that and see if we can get that done next year. That could be, just for the part we're doing, up to $300,000. In addition, we're looking to replace the air handler over the 230 gym here at the high school. That is dead right now, so that needs replacement. And also boilers on the second floor here. Those are on their last legs, and it's important to address those as well. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because this is the exact same slide you saw last year. This comes from as you can see up the top, the 2017 Taxpayer's Guide to Education Spending. The 2018 guide should be out any day now, but it's not. So these are the same numbers. What this is showing is on a comparative basis, these are about 8-9 districts similar to Rutherford. They're in our district factor group, so there's similar socioeconomic makeup of the community, and they're all K-12 schools as well. I know the public can't read this, but the two bars to the left represent the Teaneck School District, and their average cost per pupil is bumping up at $20,000. Rutherford is the third from the right set of bars. and we are at about 14.5. So we're spending 75% per pupil of what TNEC is. There's nothing we can do to catch up with them, because now that was accumulated when there was no 2% cap, and you could raise your tax levy at whatever the market could stand. The two sets of bars to the right, the first one is the see, I can't read them either. So the second one from the right is the average for these 8 or 9 districts that are listed here. So we're significantly below the average. The 2 bars all the way to the right are the New Jersey state average. So even though we are in Bergen County, the most expensive county in New Jersey, we're still spending less than the average district in New Jersey. So that tells you something. Like I said, there's not much we can do about that, but it does show that we're able to do a lot with the funds that we do have. And I think certainly the board would agree that we have some very successful programs here, and we have a very good program overall. Next steps in terms of the budget, next Monday is the Finance Committee meeting, and we'll be able to get into this in more detail at that point. As Mr. Hurley mentioned earlier, we have a special meeting on March 26th, dual purpose. One is to discuss the budget, and I will need approval to submit it to the county office at that point. In addition, the other topic is the building projects that we've discussed a little earlier today. It has to be submitted to the county office by the 29th, but I need board approval to do that on the 26th. I'm going to shoot to get it in by the 27th, so we'll see how that goes. Then the county office has to approve it no later than April 24th, and we have our public hearing on the budget on April 30th. So at that point, the budget should be pretty much finalized. Once I hear back from the county office, I'm sure they'll have some corrections, some clarifications. Usually it's nothing too major, and what the board has approved is approved at that level as well. Any questions?
Have you heard any suggestions of where the state's what the state?
Nothing. I've heard, 2 or 3, actually before Christmas I was hearing, plan for a significant decrease and plan for a slight decrease in state aid. What I'm hearing more recently is probably flat. So I don't think anybody has a clear idea at this point, but it'll all be revealed on Thursday.
And I wasn't sure if I heard, when you were on the slide that was showing the use of funds and it was listing the out-of-district placements, did you talk about the costs in general for tuition?
No, I'm still looking at those numbers.
Okay, I thought I heard something.
I said that the number of students placed out of district is holding steady and where we budgeted it. Okay. Tuition costs are going, the tuition rates are going up a bit. So I'll have a better explanation for the committee next week and then for the board on the 26th.
Okay, I was just refiling my paperwork.
Yeah, good job.
Meeting adjourned.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, where were we? I'd like to call to order, oh no, that's wrong, okay. Bear with me, folks, here.
I'm up, I think.
Yeah, I just have to find my agenda.
Well, the superintendent's report.
Your superintendent's report, please, let's move to that.
A couple of, quick things to review. Our student rep mentioned a couple of things before. The play was fantastic, and the other thing he was talking about was the Consumer Bowl, and I was just stumbled upon the fact that it was on PBS News, and I sent you an email about that with Mary Alice Williams. That's the name of the program, and they just did a piece on the Rutherford team winning the Consumer Bowl. It had video from the event, and it's about 17 or 18 years, and this is going against everybody in Bergen County. And it's not the FBLA kids. It's not the kids who are part of a club that train. It's just the business teachers are recommending some of their better students and see who's interested in going. So, going up against everybody in the county, coming up with that win was very nice for them, and it was nice to get that little Perk on PBS. So I think I sent you a link where if you didn't see it, you can go. You just have to forward through the program. It's about 20 minutes into the program. The REA's food fair on, I don't know, I saw some of you there. Once again, they did a fabulous job of promoting some of our mostly elementary school projects. But if you noticed, if you were there around the gym, the high school kids, some of the high school kids were there helping out, working, and a lot of the pictures up around the wall were of high school programs, high school sports clubs, and things like that. And they collected a lot of food at a time of year when the pantry could use it, because, as we said, there's always the off time, past holidays. So we thank the REA for that and the people that came out and supported it. Snow. There's a chance of snow tonight. I'm hoping it's not going to be anything significant. But just so you're aware, we have used up all of our snow days. We don't have any wiggle room with our pre-K to 6 and our grade 12 students, because they go one less day because of the parent conferences, and the seniors because they graduate the day before. So we're at 180 for them. So I'm hoping that the weatherman's right, and it's very light snow. We're able to get in, or at least get in for part of the day tomorrow, because if we don't do that, then we have to find a day somewhere. The most logical place to find the day would be the PD day on the Tuesday after Memorial Day, because that doesn't cut into a vacation period or extend the year. We did lose that Friday before Memorial Day. What we've done the last couple of years is a one session day that day. We'll talk more about that, to make sure we get through the next couple of weeks without the need for any more time. Okay? So if you don't wear pajamas inside out tonight. It's not, we need to get in tomorrow. Okay? On the facilities, most of what I was going to talk about, I spoke about before. We do have the meeting on the 26th. We are scheduling an April 12th meeting at Union School for community. And again, EPIC and PSA will be there, as will Mr. Kelly and I, to present. We are also waiting the investigation that we've asked the architect to do about what we talked about before. We did have a meeting with strategic planning and communication, or if that's the name, I think, is planning and communication. About 2-hour meeting, but I thought it was a very productive one. Dr. Valechko met with the folks who are going to extend our strategic planning community group to an advisory committee, and we'll have those names on the April 2nd agenda for approval. But we had a very productive meeting. I don't know if Greg, as a chair, is not a place in the agenda, but as chair of the committee and as a member of that other committee, if you want to say anything, a few words right now about anything.
Well, not much right now, it's just that it was a good start. Everybody who was there seemed very energetic and very willing to help out. It's nice. It's just moving forward is going to be more interesting now. So.
Okay, that's it. Yeah. It was a very good start, a lot of positive energy, and a lot of good ideas. So we'll see where that goes. We're probably going to meet one more time early May, I think maybe May 3rd. We haven't settled that yet. The majority of work involvement of this group would be if and when the decision gets made to go forward with the referendum. Okay. Some things on security, school security. There is a meeting scheduled for Wednesday night at 7 o'clock here in the auditorium. Primarily, I'm going to let Chief Ryan take charge of the meeting. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've done and what our plans are, and not specific about plans, but the work we've done over the years, which is really extensive. I made notes for myself for the meeting, and I came up with about 3 pages of training that either we have done as administrators or staff has done, or things we have done with the police, things we've done with OEM, both on the state and county level, things, and not just school violence. In fact, this past Friday, we had our administrative council meeting that was postponed from the snow day Wednesday, and on the agenda was Mr. Paul Dansback, who came in to talk about carbon monoxide and about there's this year's new regulations that we have to put in every building, and we have them in, carbon monoxide detectors, any place there's any device that could trigger CO. So the old code was it had to be by boiler rooms. And now it has to be, in this building, we have 29 of them because we have the home economics room and other rooms where, you know, as an example. So we reviewed with Mr. Dansback the placement, how we check them, how we respond, what do you do in a drill. We're going to, you know, adjust our plan to know how you handle the drill. So it's not just violence and the things that, you know, grab everybody's attention all the time. We look at every aspect of security. We had a tabletop with Bergen County OEM, Rutherford OEM 2 years ago, and it was about a train derailment with toxic chemicals. That was the scenario we had to work on because we're by railroad tracks. So this is stuff that doesn't always get announced for, you know, sometimes for very good reasons. You don't announce your plans, but it's ongoing. Every one of our administrators have gang awareness training, mandated. Again, we think of Rutherford, you know, we don't worry about, but it's mandated and awareness. Every year we send administrators to the SNAP conference that's run by the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office. And so this is ongoing. And in fact, you know, we were talking about me being appointed that school security position that just got created, a new position. I just found out this week I need to complete a 3-hour FEMA command center course online, and then upon passing that course, I then have to attend the last week of June 4 days of training with New Jersey Office of Management, you know, OEM. So I want, you know, part of what I'm going to talk about Monday night is just sharing what we do and what we've done ongoing. As you know, the second round of active shooting training, not drills, training with our police. The police have been in every building for 1 week in the summer, and they have done active live training for active shooter drills. And part of it was to get to know the building. Part of it was to drill. Now we're going second round. We're going to repeat the school starting this year. And the goal, as long as it doesn't snow tonight, will be to do that training on the professional development day starting in Washington School and incorporate staff. Because in the summer we didn't have staff, so now we're going to incorporate the staff. And again, we don't necessarily announce that. We don't hide it. I mean, when we did the one here at the high school, we had the streets closed off. We had, you know, command center set up, but we don't announce it because part of having secure plans, keeping it secure. But I'm going to share what I can with the public, and then I'm going to let Chief Ryan talk about what the police does, what their thoughts are. He's going to talk a little bit about Chief Russo. I'm sorry. I don't know. Yeah.
Didn't read the paper.
Yeah, Chief Russo. Yeah, I'm in trouble. I'm getting a ticket right now.
Yeah.
Chief Russo, talk about what we do on an ongoing basis with the police. So hopefully it'll be an informative meeting. And that day, you know, there's this walkout plan now nationwide. I sent to you some guidelines that came out from the state. I don't know if I include the state DOE. They were very similar to school boards. And, you know, one of the things with the walkout is security. You know, you're telling everybody, every high school and some middle schools across the nation will be outside in the public at 10 o'clock. And to me, it's concerning. I mean, we try to keep kids in the building where they're secure. Now we're putting them out on the street. So we worked with Chief Russo. We worked out a plan that at the high school he will provide some security. We are encouraging people not to come and witness it. We did not want to send a message to the students that we're not supportive of it and that we're not supportive of their concerns. But the way it's going to operate is teachers will remain in their classes. Any student who does not want to participate, because again, I don't think we should force students to participate, right? Any student that does not want to participate can stay in the class with the teacher. The event will be policed by the police and by administrators, supervisors, guidance counselors, child study team members, faculty and staff, a significant number who don't have classroom assignments at that period. And the students will be outside. There'll be a couple announcements on the PA, which we have outside. They'll do a little walk around the building, but they'll stay on our grounds, which I think is a little more controlled. So that's going to take place. At the other schools, they're doing whatever they think is age appropriate. I thought Union School came up with a fabulous week of activities. terms of acts of kindness in honor of the 17 lives that were lost, 17 acts of kindness. Have lunch with people you don't normally have lunch with. They're going to wear the school colors of the school from Florida one day. They're going to do a little educational assembly with also a little moment of silence. Again, keeping the kids inside where we think it's safer, but having them involved. And I think, honestly, some of those ideas are very meaningful. Getting to talk to people and being kind to people, especially at that middle school age. So that's where we are with that. And I also mentioned to you about Park, right? That the governor is looking to transition away from Park. That's all I know. That's all he said. But I think that was something he talked about very clearly during the governor's election. And I know there's been, we've talked a lot about Cusack and the impact of Park, so we'll see how it all plays out. Mr. Kelly and Mrs. Fargo and I are going to yet another Cusack training on the county level on Thursday, right, the 15th, I think it is. And this one's good. Then I'll have a little more detail to share with both the administration and the supervisors and with the board, because this training is for the schools. Remember I mentioned we're in the cohort that would get visited next year. This is for the folks in that cohort. So some of the ambiguity that I've been alluding to, hopefully will get cleared up a little bit for us on the 15th. Okay? Any questions? Or?
No questions? If I can say on behalf of the board, you mentioned the various things in different arenas that we do for security and safety, and that obviously with the events of last month that raises everybody's acute awareness of it, but we do appreciate that this is an ongoing effort by your administrative staff and the staff at the schools, and it helps, at least from my perspective, to know that this is going on. And I think the meeting on Wednesday, I guess, hopefully well attended, so that others in the community can be likewise aware of the details they can, because it's there's no foolproof playbook, but I think that it seems to me what we're doing is well thought out, contemplating activities.
And if Mr. Met delays broadcasting tonight's meeting, so we don't, so the people don't realize this, but we are going to film it, and we will post the 14th on the web. So we'd like to have people come out, be there in person, but it'll be kept up on the website for people to see.
I will. I'll be out of town, but of course, if any members are able to attend, that I think is a good sign of support as well. So thank you. Okay. As I said, I will forego a report of the president, and we'll go now into the business for the evening. And under personnel, Mrs. Ahmed, would you walk us through any activities that have gone on since our last meeting, and then the overview of the slate of motions for this evening?
Okay. I wasn't at any kind of committee meeting, if that's what you're talking about?
Yeah, okay. Oh, that's right. You weren't there. I don't. Would Mr. Healy, you were there? Would you comment about the committee meeting, or?
Actually, we covered it last time.
Oh, it was covered last time.
Yeah,
Okay. I wasn't here last time, so that's good. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Personnel would like to move 11 motions. The first one is biology teacher, 2 and 3 are lunch monitors hires, 4 is long-term substitute, 5 guidance counselor resignation, 6 disability leave for maternity, and 7 and 8 also maternity leave. 9, revised description of administrative secretary district office. 10, travel reimbursements. And 11, substitute hire. I'd like to move them. Any questions from?
No, and just the one job description, as we explained in the meeting, was to update that secretarial position to be in line with current responsibilities. There are no new responsibilities in the position, is what the job's been doing for the last several years. But as sometimes when a person leaves, like Mrs. Steele retired, then other people moved into different positions, you revisit the descriptions and you see that to make it accurate to the job, you make some changes.
Very good. So, Mrs. Ahmed has moved personnel items 1 through 11. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Rowland. Any last questions or comments? No, we ask the secretary to please pull the board.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Olati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move into curriculum and instruction. I'd ask Mrs. Jones to walk us through that, please.
We did have a meeting on Monday, February 26th, from 7:15 to 7:46. Mr. Hurley was here, Dr. Oletti, Dr. Racine, our president, Kevin was here, and Brenda Fargo and myself. The revised curriculum guides for fine, practical, and performing arts, social studies, STEM, and world language is presented. The enrollment figures we're talking about for the pre-K 3 and pre-K 4. Summer programs, Jumpstart, summer music school, summer STEM experience, and extended school year. And the QSAC, which Mr. Hurley just referred to, and the budget stuff that we talked about tonight. Tonight there are 6 resolutions for board consideration. The resolution 1 is approval for home instruction for 5 students. Resolution 2 is approval for the overnight trip for the Union School STEM team. This is to the VEX IQ World Championship in Louisville, Kentucky, which is great. Approval for following new and revision curriculum guides, which I just went through. Approval for resolution 4 is approval for this 4 summer school programs. Resolution 5 is approval for the submission of the special education Medicaid initiative. I'm sorry.
Semi-corrected.
Is that what it is? Medicaid incentive semi-program. And number 6 is field trip approval, which now total 110.
So, are you formally moving those, or?
No, I'm presenting
Just
for any
presenting?
additional.
And, yeah.
I have a question. The trip to Kentucky, they only get one night, and do they drive there and they come back?
No.
How can it be one night?
It's the
No, it's
STEM
4
team. They've invented a time machine.
No, it's 4/28 to 5/1. So it's April 28th,
That it was one night.
April 28th to May 1st.
How many students?
It's an overnight trip, but doesn't,
Yeah.
that's the title,
3
that's the
nights.
heading, but it's 3 nights. Yeah.
How many students are going?
There's 4, I believe, who qualified this year. Last year, there were, I think, 7 or 8. This year, I think it's 4. The SEMI is information that we get back from parents regarding medical expenses related to special education students. We rely on information coming to us. If it doesn't come to us, then the state says you should get a higher percentage of return. So we reach out to people, we email them, we mail them, we talk to them. But if you don't hit a target of return, you then have to show the state what you're doing to reach out to them. That's what that is. Okay. The summer programs are the same programs we've run. I corrected for you today the mistake that there is not going to be an increase in tuition. There is a change in the summer STEM program, as we talked about before, because our students now come through STEM in 4 through 8. So we're going to up the game a little bit, make it a 2-week program. So it'll be a double tuition, but you're getting 2 weeks instead of 1. And what we're approving tonight, there'll be a lot of approvals going forward for personnel and things like that. But this is just so that we lock the dates in, boards approve the dates, and we can begin to advertise for people to sign up. Okay.
Would you like to formally move?
I move resolutions 1 through 6.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Barrera. Last chance for any questions or comments. Seeing none, ask the secretary to poll the board, please.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Alati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving into finance, Mrs. Librera, would you walk us through the overview and
That there are three finance motions tonight for consideration. Number one is the Coordinated Transportation Services Agreement with the South Bergen Jointure Commission. The second is to approve the appointment of Phoenix Advisors to provide continuing disclosure agent services and to serve as the district's independent registered municipal advisor of record for the 2018-19 fiscal year. And number three is to approve our submission of an amendment to the 2018 ESSA for the carryover amounts as listed. I move the three motions.
is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Mazzone. Questions, comments? Hearing none, ask the secretary to poll the board, please.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Alati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
And
moving on to policy.
Yes.
Mr. Healy, would you take
There's
policy?
one resolution that was tabled on at the February 12th meeting, and the intent was, I believe, to give the board a little more time to go over the policies. There's 25 individual policies or regulations. They were distributed last month. There's one that I believe we will have discussion about the board member use of social networks, but I'd like to ask, before we get there, is there any other policy or regulation that we need to talk to tonight of the list? Else, we'll go into the discussion on the board member use of social networks, if that's acceptable.
Was there some follow-up to the GPS tracking and audio recording policy Dr. Alati had brought up last meeting?
Yeah, I thought we answered it that night. The one answer is students that would need that we wouldn't have in district, but the other more practical answer is that IEPs overrule.
They would overrule the policy.
If that was in the student's IEP, then we'd have to follow the IEP.
Okay.
There's IEPs would be probably the only thing that could trump law policy, because the student needs it, you have to make those comments.
Okay.
About the drone policy? What was that?
Well, we had a drone policy, and what we did was we realized that in the policy, it said two things that we wanted to change. One was that we would allow students to use their own drones. We wouldn't do that. Same way we don't allow them to use their own computers. We would provide drones. And the second was that we could only, the board would only allow, or the superintendent would only allow drones to be used on school property, which is going to be the rule 99% of the time. But this allowed the superintendent to consider use of a drone at a school event off property. So, for example, if there was I use the example of a marching band competition where the host of the competition has cleared with the municipality that drones could be used, and they're going to do, filming of the band, let's say, then we could see the documentation and we can say it's okay.
Okay, can we then proceed to talk about the social network, use of social network policy? I guess two things. One, I wanted to, I think everyone was clear that this is suggested, and Mr. Hurley explained that again a little bit too. And the second was that regarding the School Ethics Act, my belief would be any activity on social media would still be included in that. So if we do want to propose and adopt a board member use of social networks, I believe we'd have to customize it because this is a suggestion.
No. That's the policy that our policy provider creates based on law and code. The suggestion is it's not a mandated policy. You don't have to have it.
So
it's-
we don't have to include
You don't
it,
have to
but
include
if
your
we
policy
want to
manual, but if you include it, now you could still take wording out, but it's not.
Well, that's what I meant about customizing.
We could customize it, right? But again, this is this is sort of like if you're sick, a little extra chicken soup doesn't hurt type of thing. There's nothing in the policy that ethics violations, generally speaking, are brought from board member against board member. Sometimes they're brought from the public to a board member. But if you've looked at, and I mean, Diane, you talked about this with one of your legislative updates once. You look at it's in the paper, I'm not going to mention districts, but there's been several in our area that have had ethics violations brought back and forth. One board member cites something the other board member said that violates the code of ethics that we recite every year. So in response to the seemingly increased number of infighting among boards, Strauss-Esme took the ethics and put it into policy. So what I'm saying is, if you were to violate something that is in the policy without this policy being, I don't know if it's like doublespeak, without this policy being in place, you still would be violating code of ethics, and someone could still bring a violation against you. So the policy isn't really needed, which is why it's a suggested policy. Some people might think, hey, if it's out there front and center in policy, it raises us,
I would just say that I totally agree that it doesn't really add anything that we don't already have, but it raises some confusions in there, which I think we should address. Like, for example, it uses email as social network, even if it's private but could be read, which all emails could. So advising us to not communicate anything.
No. Is advise you not to say things that would violate your ethical code. So if you want to send an email to somebody saying the board is considering a referendum, and one of the things, to take tonight's topic, is considering and looking at different possibilities for increasing class space at the high school, there's nothing wrong with that. If you were to insult a board member, a member of the community, the superintendent, in the email, you'd be violating your code of ethics. It isn't that you can't email, it's that you can't do something that violates, and you're an elected official, so you have to, in any public venue, you can't violate your code of ethics. I lose a lot of ability to say things by nature of being superintendent.
I agree. One thing that says you can't email, but it says since the email is open to the social network definition, if Mr. McLean were to email or text us something which is confidential, that, according to this, could be a violation. It just adds more confusion. So,
No, a confidential email, the guy sent out email to you about a school security issue, and you reply to me, that's not a violation of a code of ethics.
right, but according to the policy, it's confusing the way.
Are you talking about point 5?
I'm trying to find it again, yeah.
Point 5 says, first of all, it says board members are advised to,
Right,
not board members shall or board members shall not, but board members are advised to refrain from having communications through social networks with other board members regarding any Board of Education business to avoid any potential violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. So that,
Well, for point 3, don't disclose any confidential information with the district, or it just seems that it doesn't add anything and it could lead to confusion.
I agree with that.
The thing I think it adds, from my view, the thing I think it adds is it's there as a reminder, and we remind each other of this all the time, right? There's an email about a subject, and we say don't respond all, because then we're having a meeting outside of the public's view, and we can't do that. So this is, I think, it is maybe overly complex, but it's raising awareness that you need to be guarded about what you're doing with electronic communication.
I don't necessarily think there's a policy that we need to adopt.
Exactly, yeah, I found what the policy.
It's a policy that our policy consultant is advising and suggesting might not be a bad thing to adopt, but it is not mandated by the state. It's not mandated. It doesn't, anything that you would do that in violation of your ethical responsibility, could still potentially be held accountable for with or without this policy.
I totally agree. I just think a little rewording may be needed to
So-
clarify something.
Yeah, may I make a suggestion? So we've talked about social media in a couple of different ways, and I don't know that we've fully resolved either. So with respect to this policy, while I certainly understand that it's meant to reinforce concepts that we already are governed by with respect to the code of ethics, it does seem like the wording isn't as clear as some of us would like it to be with respect to the policy. So I think I would suggest that we remove it and table it or send it back to the policy committee to work on the wording some, and maybe make a proposal down the line as to whether or not we approve it as a separate policy. But I would also ask that at the same time, we think about how the board wants to interact with social media, not necessarily to go into this policy, but to me, that's the more valuable conversation for us to be having. And I would ask that the policy committee could look at that and could think about, well, how do we engage in social media in a way that honors the code of ethics, honors our responsibility as a collective board, but also thinks about how we can leverage social media to engage the community more and better represent them on a whole multitude of issues. So I would suggest that we pull it out of the group tonight. We act on the balance of the policies, and then we ask the policy committee to review both of those things together, even though they are separate, probably separate products that would come from that.
Well, I don't disagree. I would suggest, though, that instead of having the policy committee look at it, my experience with school boards, when we had them as our policy provider, and now with Strauss Esme, is that policies come out based on a perceived need, things that are happening, right? And then they get something out there, and then they refine it, too, as time goes on. So I would suggest that in my conversations with Strauss Esme, I let them, we're paying them, right? So let them come up with some answers and some revisions. I think organically, that may just happen. Like I said, there's no urgency for this policy, okay? As far as social networking as a board, there are policies in our manual about the district, faculty, staff, schools, in utilizing social media, right? So social networks. I think we're safe to follow that. I think, that this is not, if the board decides in June to go forward with a referendum, and the board wants to draft a statement to go out on our Facebook page, the board can do that right now. I think the policy protects you. This is talking more about Mrs. Librera, Sally Librera, as an individual posting comments on maybe your social media page, which you don't give up totally your right to free speech, but you still have to be guided by the guidelines of ethics. So I don't think we necessarily need a policy for the board. So I think we could explore, and we could look at that with policy committee next time we meet, and I could look at it ahead of time, policy that already oversees our use of the internet for the district. Because when you're functioning as a board, you're functioning as a member of the district, of the Board of Education, and that policy would govern you as well. At least that would be my interpretation.
So if I understand it, what you're talking about is we need our strategy on how we're going to manage, use social media, and that's good. And then we would want to make sure existing policy supports that, so that's good. So to the management of the agenda for this evening, we haven't moved any of these, so we don't need a motion to take it back off. But so does anyone feel we should have this included with the policies that will be moved tonight? No. So we'll when you finally move them, we'll take that one out for this evening, and then follow the suggestion of Mrs. Aguera, I think. Okay. And Mr. Hurley.
Okay, so can I do that?
Yeah. Any further? So you can move them excluding that.
So we're moving resolution number 1 without suggested policy P0169.02.
Thank you. And is is there just the one policy?
And to
Yes.
clarify, this
And-
is first reading.
On first reading, yes. And is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Duvall. Any further questions or comments before we?
And when we do the April 2nd, we'll do the second reading April 2nd, not March 26th. We'll have that taken off of the agenda, so
Okay.
the one policy.
Poll the board, please.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lebrera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes?
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to buildings and grounds. Mr. Mazzone, would you guide us,
Yes,
please?
good evening. We've not had a committee meeting. We're scheduled to have one, since we've last met, we're scheduled to have one, I believe, for the 19th. There is one motion to be put forward. That motion would be to authorize the board's architect of record, PSA, to submit those plans that the superintendent had discussed earlier this evening with the group of concerned citizens as well as with the rest of the board to the Department of Education for Rutherford High School as well as Pierpont Elementary School.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Mrs. Jones? Comments, questions?
Just one point of information. I don't think we'll meet on the 19th. I think the nature of the finance, the budget with the change, we'll probably just have Finance Committee meet that night because I'm sure we have to have the budget ready for the next meeting and we want to be able to devote time to that.
So I think it's just worth repeating again that approving the plans to go to the state for review tonight, what's currently on the table, does not mean that the board is approving those plans and concept to go to referendum. It's just another step in the process to, just again to repeat what Mr. Hurley had said earlier. It's a step in the process so that we can have the educational adequacy of the overall plan and the demographic review of the district analyzed, which isn't necessarily so proposal specific or component specific, as I understand it. Okay.
Again, if we were to decide not to go forward, we're going to do everything with Pierpont, right? We don't have to resubmit anything to the state. If we decide we're going to do Pierpont, just to stay away from the high school for a few minutes anyway, we're going to do Pierpont, but we're going to change something about the gym. We would have to send that down to the state for an additional review. And Joe, please, Mr. Kelly, if I'm incorrect, I don't think that would cause a major delay in the process because it'd be very specifically looking at one aspect of a plan.
But if we came up with a major change, we want to add 3 more classrooms someplace, then we'd have to go for another review.
Well, we'd have to send even an alteration, like we made an alteration here. But what I'm saying is I think we could do that and still stay in the timeliness of it because they would have already given us the whole scope of the plan, and now we're saying, just take a look at this.
Review that. Yeah.
Right, okay.
We had a second? Yes. So poll the board, please.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lebrera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Moving then into old business or any business that.
I was going to mention earlier about the change to the chief school administrator evaluation, but the evening went on a little longer, and we have some time for this. Okay, I sent you back January, maybe I don't remember exactly when, a link to this manual, right? And the process would start later than it used to. We're supposed to have a pre-conference in April sometime. We have 2 meetings in April where we could have that pre-conference. And that is primarily for me to say to you and you to say to me, oh, here's the format, and I'm going to be submitting. It's just to kind of review the format. It's not a major discussion point. I then would trigger it by putting in, like I did with the past evaluation, goals and how their goals have been met. But the difference here is there's also standards, 6 or 7 leadership standards, where I would either give you some information or perhaps some links to things that you may have already gotten, like communications and so on. And the purpose of giving you that information is not for you to review or grade or anything like that. It's just to give you information to help you with then the rating on those standards. Okay? Like I said, there's a learning curve. It's going to be brand new. There's going to be more input for you. Not significant, but more. More input for me. Again, not significant, but more. And it's going to be a little later in the year. This year, you do have the option of doing the old for a year, and I did recommend, and I still do recommend, that we might as well do the new one to get used to it. However, we have time, if you want to look it over, and you know there are a lot on all of our collective plates right now with what's the plans we're looking at. If you're more comfortable staying one more year with the old one, we could slide to the new one next year. So that's the decision. I mean, the board. I don't want to be the one to make the decision about how you're evaluating me. That seems a little strange. I mean, I'd like to, but okay.
So I'm just saying, if you go on school board's website and you go onto online evaluations, you can just look at the way the new one runs. If that, maybe everybody should just do that and then make the decision at the next meeting.
Take a look at it in April. We can decide which way we want to go. Again, I'm fine with either one, and I think it's good to do it before it's a mandate. Where we don't, but if you look at it and you think, wow, we have meetings about this and meetings about that, and maybe it's better to use the one we're familiar with, we'll just decide in April. I'm just throwing that out there. Okay?
Just please keep in mind, we want to have it done by May 18th, May 20th, somewhere in that. And then when board members, maybe you could ask the question, have they all finished? You can collect the information now. We don't need to go through Matt Lee and have him send it all up. At any point, you can get that first compilation of all the answers, of which we would go over. But we still have to have it done on the June 26th meeting. That would be the meeting for the superintendent. You'd have to have the first meeting on the June 5th meeting. So the timeline is still the same. It's just which one you want to use.
Right. The timeline is the same, and this is part of CUSAC. And it's one of those unforgiving things, again, where we can't say, we missed it, we'll do it the first week of July, because then
you lose points if you're late.
Yes, and they're going to be much more stringent with, they're going to want to see the board meeting that it was discussed, things like that, the minutes. That's all I got.
Okay.
We do need an executive session.
Any,
it's one real quick one. Legislative update is there's a Senate Bill 1876. This is combating chronic absenteeism. Requires that if 10% or more of the students enrolled in a public school are chronically absent, the school must develop a corrective action plan, which we probably don't think really affects us. The other ones are food ones, so at this point they're not related.
Thank you. At 9:37, we'll open the floor again to the public for any comments that anyone would care to make. Seeing no one addressing the mic, we'll close at 9:37. And we'll need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing 4 student issues. And moved by Mrs. LeBear, seconded by Mrs. Jones. And a quick update on negotiations with the 2 bargaining units that we're in negotiations with right now. No action to be taken. We'll be gone 15 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. Thank you. We're in executive session.